All right, so we are moving on to session 2 for lesson 25, and we're focusing on converting a larger unit to a smaller unit. So, um, larger units, like for example, we would change a kilometer to a meter, or we would change feet to inches, and so on and so forth. So, let's start with a warm up. And one of the reasons we're doing this warm up is a lot of this will involve when you change from larger unit to smaller, we're multiplying, and we need to be able to multiply by certain place values. So for this one, we have which of these expressions are equivalent to 1,500? Um, One thing to remember is this. For example, for this first one here, we've got two zeros here, and that means we're going to move our decimal point two places. So for this 1.5, we're just going to move it two spaces, and that'll give us 150. So that's not going to be one that we want. Also with exponents, these smaller numbers here, this tells you that we're going to move it three spaces. And if we take our 1.5 and move it 1, 2, 3, that will equal 1,500. So that's one that we want. If this is also, if we have three zeros here, we're going to move our decimal three places. So if 1.5 times 100 is 150, we know that this is 1,500. So that is one. This is 1.5 times 10 to the second. So that would have two spaces. Well, if we know three gave us the right answer, we know that two would not be enough. So that's not it. And for this one, this is 1.5 times, if you do these together, if we do 10 times 10, that's 100. And if we do 100 times 10, that is 1,000. So this is 1.5 times 1,000, and that gives us 1,500. So this one would also be representing that. So lots of different ways to multiply and move our place value in that case. Moving your decimal does change the place value of our starting number. So you can think of it as shifting your number. In this case, I'm just showing you how to shift your decimal point. So good warm up and techniques we'll be using for the rest of the lesson. So go ahead and open up to page 513. And do the same here. Okay. So in some parts of the world, travel distances on road signs and maps are given in kilometers. That's what this KM over here stands for. And I'll just write it right above here. Obviously, you're used to here in the United States of saying things in miles, but the kilometers is part of the metric system, and it's a little easier to convert with that because you're just shifting your decimal point or moving your numbers into different place values. So let me show you how that works. It wants to know how many meters are there in 3.5 kilometers. And we know 1 kilometer equals 1,000 meters. So to do that, we know that kilometers are larger, and we know that meters are smaller units because it's going to take 1,000 of these smaller meters squished together to make 1 kilometer. So that's how we know that's smaller. So when you are changing a larger, in this case the kilometers, into a smaller, we're going to multiply. So we take our 3.5 kilometers, we're going to multiply it by 1,000 because we know for every kilometer it's 1,000. And I'm looking at three zeros here, so we're going to move our decimal three places. So this becomes 3.5, and I'm going to move it one place, two places, and three places. And I'm going to put zeros there to give me 3,500 km or kilometers. So, or excuse me, 3,500 meters. I misspoke there. Okay, so 3.5 kilometers is the same as 3,500 meters. All right, and it's the same rule. Count up your zeros is what you're multiplying by. If you're multiplying by a base 10 number, and that'll tell you how many spots to move your decimal point. I moved it once, twice, and 3 times to give me 3,500. Go ahead and turn the page. We're going to be using a lot of tables. In fact, your homework for Friday and Monday are going to use these conversion tables. So for this one, it shows the relationship between meters and kilometers. And for your conversion table, your first thing that you put on a conversion table has to be what one of your things is equivalent to the other. In this case, 1 kilometer equals 1,000 meters. Whoops. 1,000 meters. So you need to know that. So that's how you know where to start. And then from your one, in most cases, you just go by whole numbers. We got 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And we know that we're basically multiplying these all by 1,000 to get these answers. So again, conversion tables are great. You can see everything and literally see the patterns right there that you're going to be using. So that being said, let's look below. And we've got another conversion table set up for this problem. Now, this is just like our starting problem of 3.5 kilometers. And we know, based on that, that 3,500 is, actually, the reason I avoid using commas is so kids don't confuse them with decimal points. So we know, based on what we did before, that 3,500 fits in there. And we'll dig a little deeper into that in the notes on the next page. But again, this just means 3.5 times 1,000. We've got 3 zeros, so move the decimal 3 points. And that will equal 3,500. And that's true for any decimal you're multiplying by 10, 100,000, a million. Count up your zeros and move your decimal that many places. Let's look at the notes on the next page on 515. So what's the smaller unit, meters or kilometers? Well, like I mentioned earlier, you're going to need 1,000 meters to make it 1 kilometer. So you need those smaller pieces to make the big. So meters are our smallest ones. And we'll just write it down here. How do we know? We know because it takes 1,000 meters to make 1 kilometer, or 1 km. What operation you use to convert from larger measure to smaller? We've been using multiplication. In tomorrow's unit, when we convert from smaller to larger, we'll use division, but all of our questions today will be multiplication. And 3.5 kilometers is 3,500 meters. Okay, and use what we learned about the relationship between meters and kilometers to complete the table below. So for this one, our 0.8, actually before we start, and I still do this when I do conversions, I make sure I put down the basic information here so I know. And for this, I'm going to write a little rule over here. Move 3. Oop, move decimal. 3 places for all of these. Okay, so 0.8. If I move that 3 places, I'm going to get 800. 1.85. I know I've got 1,000 and 2,000. So I can just tell logically that that'll be 1,850. If I put 185, I would know just by seeing what was beside this on either end that I had not gone far enough. 1,850, 2.03. I know I've got a 2,000 and a 3,000, so it makes sense that this is 2,030. And another good reason to use conversion tables, because you do have some existing numbers there that can make more challenging ones like this that aren't so basic, like a 1, 2, or 3, that can kind of help you rein in and know what yours are. So how many meters are in K kilometers? Basically, you take your kilometers and multiply it by 1,000. What they're asking is what's a basic rule for that, and so we just do kilometers times 1,000. That's what we've been doing the whole time. If there are 3 feet in 1 yard, so we're going from feet to yards, explain how you decide whether to multiply or divide by 3 if you need to convert yards to feet. Well, we're converting yards, which are larger, to feet that are smaller. So our answer are yards are larger than feet. So we multiply by 3. And that's our rule. Go ahead and cross off 7. And let's work on the problems, these 3 practice problems here on the next page. All right, for this one, we're gonna create a conversion table for this one. So bear with me as far as my drawing goes. How many ounces are there in 4.5 pounds? And we can work with fractions here. We can do the half of even numbers pretty easily. And we know that 16 ounces is 1 pound. So let's create conversion table. Over on the left, we're going to do pounds and ounces. And like I said, your first thing you put in your conversion table should be the relationship for one of the things, 1 pound, and then we know it's 16 ounces. So for this one, since we're converting 4.5 pounds, I want to go up to at least 5 pounds. So I've got 2 pounds, or excuse me, yep, 2 pounds, 3 pounds, 4 pounds. Let's call this 4.5, and this last box will be 5. So let's fill in what we know. So we're multiplying 2 times 16, which is 32. 3 times 16, or you can think of it as adding 16, which is 48. 4 times 16 is 64. You don't know this one yet, so I'm going to leave this blank for a reason. Let's do 5. 5 times 16 is 80. So we know the number is going to be between 64 and 80. In fact, in this box, or right below here, we know there's 64 ounces in 4 pounds. And we know 1 pound has 16 ounces. So what's half of 16? It's 8. And that gives me 72. So if we put 72 in there, that 72 is definitely between 64 and 80. So we know that we're correct. So it's going to be 72 ounces. Again, showing how a quick conversion table could sometimes make these easier. Could you probably have done it where you just did 4 times 16 and got your 64 and then add your 8? Sure, you could have done that, but I also want kids to show that if you're truly stuck, a conversion table is the best way to go. All right, number 9, how many millimeters are in 9.25 centimeters? And it shows us that 1 centimeter is equal to 10 millimeters. The first thing I want to do is centimeters are larger, Millimeters are smaller. That's shown right here too. Also, this has 1 0. So that 1 0 means move the decimal once. So let's take our 9.25 and multiply it by 10. That means with 1 0, we're going to move that one spot, and that'll give us 92.5 millimeters, mm. And last one. Ravi's fish tank can hold 65 liters of water. How many milliliters of water can the fish tank hold? Liters are larger, milliliters are smaller, so we're going to multiply. Let's take 65, and we're going to multiply by 1,000. I got that 1,000 right from here, because 1 liter is 1,000. I've got 3 zeros, and this should give me 65,000, which is option D right there. All right. Hope that makes sense. Again, we talked about customary units in the last homework. This one, I want you to make sure you're choosing appropriate metric, and it gives you good practice on recognizing the difference between a customary and a metric measurement, and that's Y12, and all you have to do is go to 70%.